What I said? Did you hear me? Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said?
And 4 is an expedited public hearing for case LDCD 2025-1 Stewart Property Subdistrict Change to consider the change of a subdistrict from residential low RL1 to residential low RL4 on approximately 178 acres in the urban growth area. You may recall several months ago there was a land use change request on this portion of land that is south of Thornhill to the west of Spirit Lake Road. And you see that the property is bifurcated by the proposed Central Polk Parkway extension that's currently under construction. The request from the land use change was to change from agricultural, residential, rural to residential low and a portion of residential medium. This board approved a change to residential low RL1 on the balance of the entire property. The request today is to change the subdistrict from RL1 to RL4 on the eastern portion of the property that is between the Central Polk Parkway Extension and Spirit Lake Road. This did appear before the Planning Commission and received a recommendation for approval with a 4-3 vote. And this is the adoption hearing, and staff is recommending adoption.
All right.
All right, got some questions. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just can you bring up the map, Mr. Ziskel, of what it was originally when we had the ARR that was on there? Do you have that? We can pull it up. Just before our transmittal.
While he's doing that, Ben, I got a question. Does this property butt right up to the east is where they're going to build that church? It's a big, or are there houses in between there? Do you know? Apparently not.
Right. I think the church is further down the road on on Thornhill, closer to Spirit Lake.
Okay. Yeah. So it's this property, some houses, and then the church property? Okay.
Yeah, I think the church is down a ways, yeah.
Mr. Chair, so while you're looking, I'll ask another question. So this is a property we all agreed on to change it to R, what was it? RL1. And now they want to change a portion of that RL1 to RL4?
Right.
Is there, what's the reason that it didn't come up before?
Well, as you want to take it? Yeah.
Very similar to the item that we just had on Lake Daisy. When the land use has changed, the comp plan defaults to RL1. So the change from ARR to residential low automatically defaults to RL1, and then a subsequent sub-district change is required to change it to RL4.
But they're only requesting one side of that, of the property for RL4. So why not all of it, or just all of it stay at RL1?
So the difference there is the lot size and the density they can obtain. The RL1 will limit them to 40,000 square foot lots, so just shy of 1 acre. Going to RL4 will allow more of the traditional quarter acre or smaller lot sizes. So the intent is to develop the east side with smaller lots and leave the west side at the 1 acre lots.
And I know previously we had opposition for some adjacent homeowners to the west. They had concerns with the abutting land use being at a higher density, so that's where I think the board's decision then was RL1 across of it. I know initially they were asking for that RM by the Parkway on the east side, but in looking at this, when I looked at other maps kind of at a further out view, it does appear that for the most part RL1 dominates this area, correct, with respect to adjacent? I know the city of Bartow is south and we have an institutional too, but while looking at the staff report, it appears that from a compatibility standpoint, the surrounding properties are predominantly RL1, not a RL4 or an RM, correct?
I would say the answer to that depends on how far you draw the radius. Certainly
Right.
Directly adjacent is RL1, which you can see the light yellow. As we zoom out, the closer we get to Spirit Lake Road, and you can even see the upper corner here that shows some RL2. There is some higher density residential as we move to the east. So that is part of the request, is the compatibility from a radius standpoint and future growth. The east side is certainly closer to those smaller lots and the higher density, where the west side is predominantly adjacent to the RL1.
Because how far to the east do we have to go before we hit RM or RL4? Because when I was looking at an aerial, it didn't look like too much was around that area.
Again, Mr. Ziskel, so because we have a default mechanism, is,
That's okay. I've done some preliminary work, so I'm okay. I just, for the board's information, I at least want them to be understanding of kind of what I was looking at.
We don't have that specific map, but if we can see, the aerial tries to show that. You can see on the west side here, clearly more open space, less dense. As we look towards the east, neighborhoods that exist in that higher density neighborhood subdivision down to the southeast, you can see higher density as we move to the east towards that intersection of Spirit
Right.
Lake Road.
The thing that made it easier for me to understand that it's okay to separate them is the fact there's going to be a mountain between them, major highway, and I doubt if one side will even be able to see the other side. It's like they're two completely different communities.
All right, anyone else? No more questions? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If you wish to speak on this matter, please come forward and state your name and address. Do we have anybody else that signed up for this? I've got two. Okay. All right, I have a Mr. Harrison.
My name is Mike Harrison, live at 1871 Beth Lane. Not the last hearing, but the one before that in front of the commission, Ms. Troutman brought up a resolution to the Stewarts and their attorney. They were trying to go both ways on each side of the property, east and west. And it was multi-story. So at that time, she come up with a resolution if they would do away with the multi-story and it would be approved to, as it is right now. Now we get here and they're wanting to bring back the multi-story. What I understand, if I'm corrected, tell me now. But the multi-story the other side is 4 acres per acre. This one, I understand you want to get smaller lots. And is the multi-story going to be brought back?
Ben, can you answer that?
The request is for residential low, which would give the smaller quarter-acre lots. A single-family home could certainly be built as 2 stories. The request is not for residential medium or apartments or townhomes that would be more than 2 stories. But to say that a single-family home would only be 1 story, we can have 2-story homes in any of our residential districts.
Well, Ben, maybe to help them clarify too, from a ratcheting perspective or stepwise movement, with this going from an RL1 to now a request for an RL4, what would be the future path? You know, if they look at this in further development patterns or suggestions from RL4, what's the next step? Because I think that's probably his concerns is we thought at last meeting, okay, we have this as RL1, that's kind of a meet in the middle. The board was okay with it, we're all good with it. We didn't want the RM because of the higher density and the multi-story for compatibility reasons, but now we're looking at considering an RL4, which is diverting from what we all unified and said, okay, we approved last time. So if we were to go RL4 this time, then what's next? Because probably to his point.
So the RL4 development standards would be a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. It would be a side yard setback of 7 feet and a rear yard of 10 feet. By approving this today, that's what they'd be entitled to. Any additional deviation would have to come in the form of either a variance or a planned development to deviate from those standards. But with this action, the next step of development without any other approvals would be 6,000 square feet, 5 units per acre, 7-foot side yards, and 10-foot rear yards.
And then any deviation would be what, level 2 or level 3?
It would either be a level 3 plan development between the planning commission, or if any individual lot wanted a variance, that would go before the land use hearing officer. Those are paths that that any property right has.
I think just to clarify that a 2-story home could be built on either side of this And that's not, we're not looking at a multi-story, multifamily possibility in the RL4, correct?
That's a correct statement.
I think, if I may add to that, Ms. Troutman, before there was actually consideration of townhouses and apartments. That's off the agenda still, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
But that's where, let me just, for, again, clarity wise, because again, as these get stepwise and they grow legs, if it goes from RL4 and they want to go and do either a townhome development, Ben, what would that entail for them to go from an RL4 to allow townhouses? And that, would they have to go back to an RM request? If
Yeah.
that was,
That's correct. The land use RL4 only allows 5 units per acre, so that's not a townhome or apartment product. So
Right.
to change and increase the density would require a land use change, which would then go back through the public hearing back before this board to change the land use from residential low up to a higher density land use. Yes,
but
sir.
in framing this, what I'm looking at is if it goes from RL1 today to an RL4, then one could look at it and say, well, okay, well, now we have RL4 around this. Why don't we go ahead and go back to RM on that north sector, because now it's surrounded by RL4. So I see it as potentially growing legs to keep asking for more and more and more. And we went from RL1 to now possibly something further that we didn't intend to begin with.
I'm just cautious that we are putting the cart before the horse here. I mean, we have to look at the proposal in front of us. If something else is going to change, then we have that discussion. And I think we're actually going down a possible scary legal path when we are bringing that into the discussion for this particular hearing.
I've seen this, Shana, rare for something like this to just keep stepping and stepping, but it's up to the board to say enough's enough, and that's what our job is. If they want to come back again, I think we've already told them once, residential medium or whatever it was wasn't acceptable. I mean, it probably won't be the next go around, but
You have to decide on the.
yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah, that's the next
what we
go-around.
do. So,
Yep.
and
All
I'm
right.
good with RL4.
All right.
So I just want to address, I forget your last name, sir. Harrison. So I think, from what you're hearing clearly from staff and in the discussion is that there will not be the discussion of the apartments and such that obviously was agreed upon last time as well. So that is still factored in. That will not be in this project as we vote on this today under this proposal.
So, saying that, are we going to keep it as is now, or are we going to change the east side versus the west side?
I cannot, look into the future. I can tell you that I'm here today and I have to focus on the facts of what's in front of us. For us to project out puts me in a very uncomfortable position because I am here today on this one particular hearing.
I think that's what he's asking, though.
Yeah.
Are we going to go RL4 on the east side and keep the west side RL4?
Okay,
We're going to vote on that in a minute. So.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood your question if that was that. Yes, sir. That is what we are looking at is the RL4.
My next consideration, has there been any study on traffic? I understand sometimes they say, well, we can't bring that up right now. But in the morning time between 7 and 8 o'clock, it takes 25 minutes coming down Thornhill Road to get on 540. It is backed up sometimes a mile. Has there been any consideration on the traffic?
Well, I'll see if I can answer that, Ben. So you can always we can talk about anything you want to on this project. I mean, we don't not talk about anything. Okay. But and it's a frustrating process to me as well, but we don't get to the traffic until you figure out what they're going to do. So once they come up with a plan and they say, we want to put X amount of homes over here and X amount of homes over here, then the county looks at how bad is the traffic going to be? We're going to need another turn lane. We're going to need this or that. So to answer your question, that's not going to be even talked about until they figure out what they're going to do. And keep in mind, we approve these things all the time and they never go anywhere. I mean, so the county's not going to spend any resources trying to figure out a problem that may not even ever come about. So that's how the timing goes on that.
Correct. And that would be with the storm drainage also.
Yeah.
Probably at that
Correct.
time.
Yes,
All the environmental traffic, all of those components are looked at in greater detail.
Right. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Daniel Bentz.
You've all talked about most,
Mr. Bentz, how about give us your name and address, please, sir?
1630 Beth Lane, Winter Haven, Florida. Most of the concerns I have, y'all have discussed. But the fact is, I thought this was decided the last time when it was, both sides were going to be the same. And now you're going to change it so there's more people, more development. And you can talk about up the road, way up the road, there's more houses, but where we live, there's not. And the property that's there that's being discussed around it is not. And I've lived there 30 years. I've lived here my entire life. I'm 60 years old. And I look around at all the changes that's being made, and I know there's got to be development, but, you know, our way of life's being sold out. Talking about Thornhill Road. You get on there, my sons have to drive that every day to go to work. And multiple times they almost get in accidents. I sat at my house, I'm retired, and I hear the ambulance up and down, wreck after wreck after wreck after wreck, up and down Thornhill and down at Winter Lake and Thornhill. And the more you let them develop that area, and the more units they're going to put, the more density, the worse all of this is going to be. I mean, if I wanted to live in Tampa or Orlando, I would move there. And I don't want to live there. And all of this land change that's being done in Polk County, not just where I live, but around. If you people lived out there, you would not okay any of this. I'll guarantee you that. And that's what I had to say. Thank you. And hopefully, you know, y'all won't change it. But
Thank you, sir.
there's nothing I can do about it.
Thank you, sir. Did we have anyone else on that? Okay.
Yep, here we go.
He didn't, we don't have anybody signed up.
He signed.
No, that's our new rule, sir. I mean, you were told. Yeah. Okay, well, what, are you wanting to come back? Come on up. Sir, you had your time, and we're going to move on.
Good morning. For the record, Shelton Rice. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Peterson and Myers, address 225 East Lemon Street, Lakeland, Florida. I apologize. You're stuck with the B team today. Bart wasn't able to make it. I recognize we're still under expedited proceedings, and so, you know, given that this is our first opportunity to speak in accordance with those requirements and process. Having said that, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of questions. I think it may make the most sense for us to just give our presentation briefly to make sure it's clear what we're asking for and to explain a little bit about how we got where we are today. So if you'll bear with me. Okay, is that working?
Nope. Yep, here we go.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention before I get into it, we have Ms. Stewart, Ms. Crosland Stewart with us. Ms. Stewart and the Stewart family has been an agricultural family in Polk County for generations. They have been here for a long period of time. I know this commission is familiar with this site. You've seen it when we came through with the comp plan amendment. And then you're certainly aware of the concerns and the issues associated with this site, and that it's been split in half. There's a roadway to service a lot of traffic for the community, a public purpose where they had property taken right through the middle of their ranch. And so really it bifurcated it into two pieces. So they do ag work, ag operations, cattle ranches. I grew up on a cattle ranch, thinking of the complications associated with now having a site bifurcated with an elevated roadway through the center of it. It's untenable. And so that really precipitated our client coming in and saying, okay, let's analyze what are the appropriate entitlements for this site, what makes sense, because frankly, our intended purpose for this site has been frustrated by this involuntary taking from the property owner. So that's a little bit of background to kind of go into this. The future land use has been covered. It's residential low. When we ask for a comp plan amendment, as has been mentioned by Mr. Ziskel, that automatically defaults to a residential low 1. We didn't ask for residential low 1. That's just where it goes. We typically don't file for subdistrict change or ask for a subdistrict change concurrent with the future land use designation, because as an example at the last hearing, some of those future land uses can change or be modified as late as at the adoption hearing. And so that subdistrict typically comes at a later date afterward. The development area was also changed to urban growth, as has been mentioned. This is just a subdistrict change, and it really shows the separation. The only thing in question today is the area in orange. This is on the eastern side of that turnpike. And so this zooms out a little bit to Commissioner Scott's comments about what's in the immediate vicinity. Before I get into that, I'm going to mention a little bit about RL. So the comprehensive plan for residential low allows up to a maximum density of 5 units per acre. That's what they're allowed to pursue in the comprehensive plan, and it's detailed in the staff report with chapter and verse from the comprehensive plan. The limitation really comes on these subdistricts based on minimum lot size and details associated with that. So our request is really, frankly, not to change anything different other than we're allowed to do these smaller lots by right. Our client is not a developer, right? They've never been a developer. They're not in the development business. They look at this. They look at the development that's occurred around them. You look at all of the colors as you go east on this site that's occurred. There's a lot of development happening. But then when you look specifically to the north of the site, you've got plan development approvals. You've got plan developments to the east. And so when I mentioned previously, you can go up to 5 units per acre. With a plan development, RL1, RL2, 3, 4, and 5 are all eligible to pursue development up to 5 units per acre with the plan development. So that's really the limitation there. Residential low doesn't allow multifamily by right. It's a conditional use approval at a level 3, so they would have to go through a public hearing to pursue multifamily development of the property. So we look at the area. There's been a lot of investment in infrastructure. Recognize there may be limitations, and certainly those would be evaluated if and when we get to that point down the road. No pun intended, traffic studies, Thornhill Road, and issues that may be associated with that. The construction and the impacts to the turnpike extension, that road's being built now, as we're all aware. It's there. This impact already exists. And so what we're looking at is large estate-sized lots, 40,000 minimum square foot lots, adjacent to an elevated turnpike facility. Is that where our estate lots go, or is something smaller, more consistent with that, sandwiched between a high-intensity, high-traffic turnpike road or parkway extension and, frankly, a waste facility or a management facility for the utility department? So this is north up to the left of your screen. This property on the top of the screen is really what's in question today, and you can see there's an approved development kind of shown just to the east on Thornhill Road, and then you can see some of the other surrounding uses. This is the existing construction on Thornhill Road. This is a graphic created to show what that may look like down the road. Wetlands, we recognize there's going to be wetlands. There are wetlands on the site. That's all part of what would have to be evaluated. We're not asking for any deviation from the standard land development code provisions, the requirements of your comprehensive plan as it relates to any of those things. Stormwater design, all of that would have to meet your code requirements. So when we talk about compatibility, and I'll back up and show a map in just a second, when you look at the surrounding properties, where the existing vegetation is really separates this use, even where it is adjacent to other residential users. There's a lot of separation. So looking at the map, once again, the top piece is really what we're focused on. You can see the majority of that site is surrounded by a pretty intensive vegetative buffer, some of which may be in wetlands. So there'll be this continued separation, even where they're adjacent to some residential, from a visual standpoint and potentially from a noise standpoint. So this just shows some of the development in the area. Number one, that was acquired by Swift Mud, but it had entitlements for 391 units on 158 developable acres. Number two, 124 units on 35 developable acres, pretty consistent with what we're asking for in RL4. Number three, 262 on 65 acres. And number four, 74 units on 28 acres. Just some additional comments. As you look more towards the bottom right of the screen, there's a number of projects, 60-foot lots by 110, 70-foot lots by 110, 45 by 110, 50 by 110. So it's not like this is something foreign to the area. This is pretty consistent with really what's coming from Spirit Lake Road and progressing to the west. Recognizing we now have a line drawn. We didn't draw it with the roadway, but on the east side of that road, this is pretty consistent with certainly what we're looking at. This is just a bird's eye view of an approved development in close proximity to this site. So I'll summarize just briefly. We recognize there's been a transition in this area. There's investment in infrastructure, water, wastewater lines. The Development Review Committee, or DRC, has recommended approval of this request. We have a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you have, but we respectfully request a favorable vote. Thank you.
All right, any questions for him?
I have a follow-up for Ben, but not for him.
Say that again.
I just have a question for the school when he comes back up.
Okay, we're going to end the public hearing and bring it back to the board for further discussion.
That's a question. When it was in here before, and we had the ARR to RL1 request, and then a portion was RM on the northeast side by the Parkway extension. Is it my understanding that the applicant at that time wouldn't have been able to ask for RL4 on that east side? It could only ask for RL1 and RM. Is that correct?
That's correct. So in line with what the applicant has just mentioned, when we went through the comprehensive plan amendment process, the request for RM to be modified by the board could go to RL only, but it wasn't advertised as a sub-district change. So the decision by the board at that time was RM or RL. And that the request or the decision by the board was to modify that request to approve RL. And then once the entire thing was RL, the applicant was able to look at a sub-district change. But to Mr. McVeigh's point, that they're not going to apply for a sub-district change until they know which land use they have on the property. So the sub-district never came in until the adoption of the land use was finalized by this board.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I motion for approval.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Oppose?
Nay.
Oppose.
Motion carries. All right.
Said, did you hear me? Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said?